Now, we want to talk about that if you have a surplus in your balance of payment, what's the good thing about that? ठीक है? So again, even in the exam, if you come across they're mentioning about surplus, so always remember surplus was what? When inflow was greater than outflow. Okay, it's not just about export is greater than import. There are lots of accounts. So overall, you have more money coming in than going out. And it can actually strengthen your currency. Okay, so if you have a surplus in balance of payment, one of the good things is that it can strengthen the domestic currency. Now, this will happen if you don't do the market operations, open market operations, and you don't try to balance it off. So, inflow more means higher demand for your currency than supply, and your currency can strengthen. Now, when the currency strengthens, there are few advantages to it. So, for example, if Pakistani currency becomes strong, the imported goods and raw material becomes cheaper. So that's a good thing, right? Overall cost of production may fall, consumers may benefit. Not only that, a strong currency even suggests a stronger economy. So even that's a good thing. So from one point of view, if your currency strengthens, you get two advantages over here. Other than that, if you have a surplus, you can your sell own currency and buy foreign currency reserves. Now, this is the case in which you are not letting your currency appreciate. You're trying to balance it off, okay? But now that you have foreign currency reserves in hand, this is the extra dollars you have in the vaults. इससे क्या होगा? You will have future stability in trade as you can use the reserve currency. Okay, तो आपने क्या किया? If just in case you want to buy something from foreign economy, you have the reserves already, you don't have to go into the international market and buy their currency, so you just use your currency. It will not even fluctuate your currency for now, because every time Pakistani government goes in the international market to buy dollars, Pakistani rupiah has a pressure of getting weak. So if you already have the reserves, you don't have to buy their currency, and so your currency remains stable. So you can definitely do that. Not only that, if you have any kind of future deficits, um, that can be controlled by selling off the reserves to stabilize currency. So अगर फ्यूचर में डेफिसिट आता है, डेफिसिट causes the value of the currency to fall. You don't have to worry about it. You just simply sell the foreign currencies that you have, and your currency is not going to fluctuate, so it can be used for that purpose as well. ठीक है. uh, in fact, not only that, now that you have reserves in hands, if the government or if the country feels that we need to undertake some kind of a mega infrastructure project in which you have to get a lot of imported capital from abroad, and if you import expensive capital, there is going to be a downward pressure on your currency, because imports say the value falls because you're supplying more of your currency. So usually for a big heavy infrastructure projects, a lot of money goes out because you don't have the manpower or the capital to undertake those. But if you have good large reserves, you can undertake those without affecting your currency so much. You can just simply sell those reserves and you can set up those infrastructure, just like what China did uh, after 2010, 2012. uh, that when the entire global economy was going in recession and they had a lot of US dollar reserves, trillions of dollars, they started investing that money in Africa and the Silk Route, in which the CPEC का route है, and then all the way to London, China to London का पूरा route है. They invested a lot of money over there, a lot of infrastructure, and they spent that money uh, to develop all those places, right? And did the yuan fall in value? Not really, because they were using the foreign currencies to do that, and so their currency remained strong. So countries can undertake large infrastructure projects that may require imports from abroad and can be fulfilled by the reserves in hand. Okay, so quite a few advantages. Having surpluses have good advantages, but unfortunately, there are some problems with it also. So, the problems of surplus. So, let's deal with the first problem, that if you let your currency appreciate. Okay, so if the currency appreciates. Now, the thing is, one would say, okay, why would they even let it appreciate if they know the problem? The thing is, uh, and this is what we're going to learn in the foreign exchange, that there are different types of exchange rate systems that you follow. If I say if you let your currency appreciate, that means that you are using the fixed or the managed exchange rate system, because that means the government has an option to intervene and correct the exchange rate's value. ये सिर्फ फिक्स्ड में और मैनेज्ड में पॉसिबल है. If the country is following a free floating exchange rate system, then government or the central bank has no power to go in and manage the exchange rate in any way. So for example, if we talk about US versus the pound, that's a floating exchange rate, और उसमें fluctuation completely demand and supply पे है. The Federal Reserve has no power, or the central bank uh, of London has of UK has no power over it, of England, sorry. तो उसमें करेंसी अप भी जा सकती है, डाउन भी जा सकती है, प्योरली डिपेंडिंग ऑन द डिमांड एंड द सप्लाई. So if currency appreciates, okay, the problem that can happen is the price of export can rise, leading to exports to go down. And appreciation, say, price of import becomes relatively cheaper, and that can lead to import rising. So export falls, import rises. What's going to happen? Trade balance worsens, and that's a bad thing. Trade balance worsens. That's future trouble, basically. So if you let your currency appreciate, you can face a future deficit problems or worsening of the trade balance, rising imports. Okay. What are the problems you might face? Number two, if the surplus is converted into foreign reserves, so it has its own problem. Problem like, now this reserve, when I say this reserve, if you're not using it, all of this foreign currency is just sitting there with the uh, central bank. For example, in case of China, let's suppose, uh, when in 1970s, uh, when China became a little more open to the international market and they started uh, their dialogue from the communists, they were starting to move, they were planning to transit to a free market. Transition ka matlab that they want to leave away the all government control and move towards a little more free market private enterprises. So, after Mao, the new president who came in, he made basically a deal with the US. I think it was the Reagan's government at that time. And they wanted to basically get all these different technologies and come into the international market and trade. So they established factories and stuff. Okay, so it was a very slow process which started in the 70s. Main effects started coming in the 80s and the 90s mainly. But the thing is, they started setting up infrastructures. Um, so as a result of that, a lot of export was happening and they were building a lot of foreign currencies and they were just converting those into US dollars. And they were not spending that money on their people, they were just holding on to that reserves, for more infrastructure projects, of more capital acquiring, yeah, from all over the world. And they were not spending on their people. So उससे क्या हुआ कि लोगों का livelihood wasn't rising, but the government was becoming stronger and stronger and they had more and more money, and that money was used for more and more investments and stuff, which is not a bad thing because it just improved their further future potential. But what we're saying over here is that when you have large foreign reserves, um, if the reserves are not used on people, if the reserves are not used on people to buy imports, then living standards does not improve. Does not improve. The thing is, if they would have used all that reserves coming in to buy more imported stuff, which they can afford. Now, remember, imported stuff improves the country's living standards because the goods that you were not producing or did not have, now you can actually acquire those and your people can actually enjoy those, right? तो एक तो ये मसला हो गया. उसके अलावा reserves can be invested and earn interest, but you're choosing to just keep it in the walls. Okay, so this is the opportunity cost of keeping reserves is the interest forgone. Right, so this would be your काउंटर। इनफैक्ट जो आपने रिजर्व रखा है with inflation means the goods and services become more expensive, so with inflation the purchasing power of reserves falls.